This is the session on top 10 innovations with vSphere. And it's a session that has historically been very popular. And it's really great to see all of you here today because it is a strong testament to the community that we've built around vSphere. And while we've delivered a lot of innovation within VMware Cloud Foundation, there's actually a lot of things that are happening just within core vSphere alone that deserve a lot of attention. And so we're excited to talk to you about the capabilities that we've delivered within vSphere as part of VCF 9.0. So just to quickly introduce ourselves, my name is Yumi Hong, and I lead the product marketing teams for our core infrastructure products, including vSphere, vSAN, NSX, and our VCF advanced services. And joining me today is Harshad.
Yeah, I'm Harshad Kolte. I'm report to Yumi. I'm responsible for vSphere and the launch for it and the messaging as such. So I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. He's really the star of the show here, and we'll be going through a lot of the innovations that we've delivered. But before we get started, if you've attended this show in the past, you know that we like to take selfies for social media posts. So we're going to take a quick selfie here.
All right. Say cheese.
Yes, it's going on social media. Cheese.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this is our standard disclaimer. You've probably seen this a million times already. We're going to start out with a quick poll here, just with a show of hands, just to see where folks are on their private cloud journey. Which of the following products are you using today? So just by show of hands, who's using VMware Cloud Foundation? Oh, that's great. About a fourth of the room. What about VVF, VMware vSphere Foundation? Maybe like 10 folks. vSphere and another VMware product, the majority of you. How about vSphere only? Okay, just a few people in the audience. Yeah, this is great to see. We see a lot of adoption with VMware Cloud Foundation as well, compared to last year. And we're really trying to deliver with VCF this modern private cloud, right? And so when people hear about private cloud, they think it's about a location, about on-premises data centers. But for us, it's actually not about a location, but more about an operating model, really delivering that consistency across the customer's environment, whether that be on-premises or in the public cloud or at the edge. And really delivering that public cloud agility and scalability and marrying that with the cost efficiency, the security, the performance that you get with an on-premises data center. And of course, foundational to all of that is vSphere. It's the workload engine that powers the workloads for almost all of the large enterprises out there today, as well as smaller businesses. And so this is an area that we continue to invest in, and we are evolving it to adapt to the ever-changing IT landscape. And so I'm going to start out by setting the stage on the trends and challenges that we see, and that helps us inform the different value props that we are surfacing through VCF 9.0. So the first trend that we see is really around containerized workloads. And traditional VMs are relevant and will continue to be relevant, but 95% of global organizations are expected to run containerized workloads by 2029. And so with VMware Cloud Foundation, we're enabling customers to run both traditional VMs and containers. And underpinning all of that is vSphere Kubernetes service, where we're enabling one single consistent API for deploying, managing, and provisioning both VM and Kubernetes clusters. And for platform engineering teams, they get self-service access to infrastructure provisioning and it still allows the IT teams to retain governance and control. We also enable fully upstream conformant Kubernetes distribution that is certified by CNCF. And the VKS and the Kubernetes clusters can be upgraded independent of the vSphere infrastructure so that you can minimize downtime and stay up to date on all of the Kubernetes innovations. And as you will hear from Harshad in a little bit, we've taken that one step further with VCF 9. The other challenges that we see are around IT complexity, which hinders companies from adopting and building the private cloud. And this is really about infrastructure silos that exist across resources, skill gaps, high costs, underutilized infrastructure, as well as operational inefficiencies. And all of this needs to be addressed with performance in mind for the workloads, the high demanding workloads that are out there today. And in order to deliver that private cloud experience, it needs to be scalable. And you need to also have a diverse and robust set of cloud services, and with self-service as well, which is critical to deliver infrastructure at the speed of the developer. And then finally, the challenges that we see are around security, because security has become a lot more complex with the nature of the attacks evolving. A lot of the attacks were file-based in the past, but now they are fileless in nature. They evade traditional forms of detection. And so securing your infrastructure has become infinitely more complex. And so this is where, with vSphere and with VMware Cloud Foundation, we deliver security out of the box with capabilities like identity federation, live patching, so that you can update your infrastructure and address vulnerabilities in a manner that is centralized and not disruptive to your environment. And we have built in security throughout every single layer of vSphere and the stack. And so this brings us to the three themes that we have around vSphere 9.0. The first one is about modernizing your compute infrastructure so that you can optimize the utilization of the investment that you've already made in your VCF infrastructure, and then to future-proof it for further growth. The second one is about powering modern workloads. And so meeting the performance needs of the workloads, being able to run both VMs and containers through a single unified experience. And then thirdly, it's all about security and ensuring that out-of-the-box hardening and making sure that you can safeguard your data against the threats of today. And vSphere powers both VMware Cloud Foundation and VVF. If you're not familiar, VVF is the solution that has vSAN and VCF operations, whereas VMware Cloud Foundation is our full private cloud. And so these are the three themes that we are delivering on, and I will now hand it over to Harshad to go through the capabilities that we've delivered in each of these different.
Thank you, Yumi. Thanks for setting the stage up. I'm glad to see you. People are standing. There's some seats up front if you guys want to come along. But I'm glad to see this packed audience. Yumi already touched on some of the messaging and capabilities and pillars that we are using from a product strategy perspective and for delivering the features as well. Before we head in, I always want to get a feel for where we are. I mean, we got a sense of which applications you are using at this time, but I am always interested in finding out where you are from. So from a vSphere version today, before I talk about capabilities, how many folks are, by show of hands, at 8 update 3? Whoa. That's very nice to hear. A year later, I expect. How about 8? Not at U3, 8, U1, U2. Some folks are still there. Okay. Any 7.x folks? You know the end of service is coming up, right?
It's an licensing issue we ran into.
I see. 2 months. You got 2 months to. We will address that a little later. Let's address the technical features first. How about 6? Anybody? 6. Do you have anything on 5? You as well? 1. 5? Oh, a couple of them. No, 5, 7? 6. Last year we talked about a little bit of this. When you upgrade your hard disks and you stop using VHS tapes. Sorry, I'm kidding. I shouldn't make fun, but 6.7, 7.x is coming end of support. I know 6.7 was a great release. It was a very stable release, but that's a testimony to what we have delivered on vSphere as a platform. And you should trust us as we are taking you on this journey to VCF 9 as well. There is some thought that's gone into why we are consolidating, why we have vSphere Foundation. We see that our customers do need some of that HCI capabilities. They do need some of the operations abilities, and going further and further up the stack into VCF. I know I'm not doing a VCF pitch, but there is some thought behind that. And if you have trusted us like you have done on the 6.7 platform, we continue to build the core virtualization platform technologies that are important to you. So with that, I'm going to jump into the actual meat of the topic today. Okay. So in no particular order, let me first talk about NVMe memory tiering. So if folks were here last year at this time, we did a tech preview of this feature last year. So we did have a little bit, and we had some roadmap items, but tech preview items also mean that we are trying. Handful of customers have that. We get some feedback from them, and move on and add some more capabilities in. And it's not a very hard concept, right? You add a second layer of cheaper NVMe memory so that you are increasing capacity, and there are some benefits you can derive from that. So, but before I jump there, we talk about, this is about memory. CPU scale, if you think about it from a scaling perspective, CPUs have always been, at the forefront. CPU scale increases every year by, Moore's law and all that. Or if not every year, every couple of quarters or 2-3 quarters. CPU scale is always increasing. Core scale is always increasing. Unfortunately, that has not happened in the memory domain. Memory doesn't double. And, so as far as new deployments go or updating your hardware go, that cost is pretty high as a fraction of, as a portion of the total cost of your BOM. So that's one aspect of it. So memory, what customers do, they will buy more dense DIMMs or which are essentially pricey. So that's one thought that went into the future. The second is usually for workloads, as they scale up, performance needs go up. CPU utilization versus memory utilization. CPU utilization may be at 20-25%, something you guys can attest to what's in your environments, but they need to talk to each other and they need to use memory for that. So typically memory utilization is higher, and memory utilization starts becoming the bottleneck for your performance and for scaling your workloads. So those two things go hand in hand together. So what this feature does is allows you to use the cheaper NVMe devices as your second tier, kind of like a L1, L2 cache, so that your hot pages can be on your traditional DRAMs, and your cold pages can be offloaded to the cache, which is NVMe, the NVMe memory tier. And there are some benefits from that. When we did the tech preview last year, the ratio of DRAM to NVMe was default at 1:4. With what we have in 9.0, which is a progression since last year, is at 1:1. Basically, you can double your capacity. When you double that capacity, your memory utilization can be reduced, CPU utilization can be higher. We are not quite we don't claim performance gains yet, we don't have benchmarks for that. But after the announcement of 9.2, Arvind from our product management team did a great blog on the scenarios where you can use this, and there's also a customer reference which talks to all of these benefits that real customers have started getting: better cost efficiency, better utilization of your memory, as well as CPU resources, saving on CPU cores, 25 to 30% saving on CPU cores, effectively we got to about 40% reduction in TCO for typical workloads that we have seen. So great feature to have. It's one of the things that's been touted really well, and you'll see this in the VCF slide decks as well. This is one aspect. So what Jimmy was talking about from our messaging pillars or capability pillars, this is along the lines of the modernization journey, right? Squeeze the maximum you can out of your existing hardware and existing infrastructure. In addition to those resource management, we have some additional features. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time about these. You can go to the technical session, which is there tomorrow from Bob Plankers and Dave. They will talk a little bit about this. We have added visibility into vGPU profiles, keep on enhancing that, making DRS, GPU. We announced GPU-aware DRS last year. There are enhancements that have gone into that, improved management for GPU to GPU communication, network I/O control. So other resource management features that a little more technical content in the TMM session. So number 2, native VPC support. And our target audience is the VI admin, right? This vSphere core audience. At a larger level, it's the cloud admin, which simply means you are doing both via vSphere management, storage management, networking management, right? From that perspective, and we spoke also about the theme for 9.0 is private cloud. Private cloud, you cannot get without a full stack. vSphere has been around for what, 27 years, 26 some years. As we brought HCI into it and brought vSAN into it, we started making changes to our vCenter UI, making the management of it for configuration, updates, policy, etc. easier. The same thing we have done now with networking. How can VI admins, not just say, hey, network admin guy, it's your job. There has to be something that makes things easier. So we have brought in the construct of VPCs, which are actually well understood from a networking concept perspective and industry-wise. So native VPCs have been brought into the vCenter UI. Previously, what you had to do, multiple clicks to multiple consoles in vCenter, go to NSX, figure out the configuration, commit back. It was very error-prone. But by bringing that into the vCenter UI, we have tried to make the job of the VI admin a little easier. It's kind of a networking as a service experience, make it a little more unified, consistent with how we have configured your compute storage as well as networking. And by doing all of this, then we can actually extend it further, right? This is another reason to use VCF9, because this is base functionality that's at the vSphere vCenter level, but this is exposed in VCF automation, VCF operations in multiple ways. But this construct itself comes from within vCenter, being able to support that. So great feature to have. It's also what helps build the capability for VCF and VCF automation. Third one, and this is a little of a along the GPU workload side. Last year we talked a lot about GPU profiles and how we can share GPUs and increase the performance of that. But we found out that in the case of typical AI workloads, which are like inferencing workloads, which are on your on premises on your private cloud, which is you need fast access to those to be able to inference that data. We found out that for typical large profiles, which are like 48 gig vGPU profiles in the context of our configurations, the downtime, the vMotion was a bottleneck. It was taking too long. And for an AI workload to have longer downtimes or for vMotion is simply something that we had to address. So a little bit of sausage making there. The intent was to make the vMotion faster when you're doing load balancing of your GPU workloads or for any other updates, etc. So 2 or 3 areas, like speeding up the transfer rate by using multiple TCP connections, using a faster pipe, 100 gig pipe between the VMs, and also using accelerators. In fact, there is another demo if you come by the vSphere booth today, an additional enhancement was added to the QAT accelerator so that you can get even faster vMotion. But essentially what that has done is that if you know in vSphere land, when vMotion occurs, right, you pause the VM, you copy the data over, you migrate the VM, right? So that stun time has been reduced, and we were able to achieve, like for those typical GPU profiles, almost a 6x reduction. Stun time of less than 2 seconds. What is, depending on who you ask, 12 seconds to 2 seconds, 40 seconds to 2 seconds. So under 2 seconds. So it's a very great enhancement which has gone in. You can actually see the effect of that on the GPU workloads. I'll call them GPU workloads, typically AI inferencing workloads. Depending on your GPU profiles, that may be different numbers, but very close. So it's a very great feature to have. We continue to focus on making performance improvements. Next one, live patching. So last year I was on this stage. I was really super excited because for me, for a VI admin, the holy grail is I'm making my upgrades, and I have zero downtime for everything. That's where I want to be, right? That's aspirational. We started small. With live patching, we were targeting express patches. Everything that is live patchable was what was our aim. In 8U3, that was our phase 1 of this feature. We got to about like 40-50% coverage. And I know as the marketing guy, I should be saying we can do everything, but we're not there yet. From everything that's live patchable, and this is specifically targeting express patches which we use for security. Intent being that if there is a update that needs to be made for which is typically in the security context, we want to roll that out fast, and we want to do that with zero downtime. Hence, the enhancements that have been going there. From everything that is live patchable, I think our coverage is at right around 80%. From a roadmap perspective, we are aiming for full coverage. I can't say which release. But the enhancements that have gone in that last year is what is live patchable, some VM kernel updates, support for user mode daemons. The NSX, the native VPC support basically means we have support for NSX profiles, and that can be also made part of the live patches. So a lot of enhancements have gone in to increase that coverage so that you can get to the security patches faster, and we continue to develop further so that you can get to 100% coverage. Benefits are simpler, right? Simple to understand, faster upgrades without evacuation of hosts or VMs. Number 5, so this is all, again, from a modernization perspective, our focus on operations and lifecycle management enhancements. Before I jump in, how many folks use still VUM? Anybody still use the update manager versus VLCM? Everybody is using VLCM? You use VUM? You like the... Depending on the environment, okay. Yeah. No, the reason I ask is these specific changes have gone in VLCM there. So, and we have been making those updates since 8.0. I think VUM to VLCM started right in that 8.0 time frame. But we have been making enhancements to make that vCenter upgrade faster itself. Right? When you are doing a patch, first you need to update vCenter, then so everything has to go down and come back up. So RDU, we call, doesn't stand for RAL. Did it stop? Yeah. It doesn't stand for Raleigh-Durham, which is where I am from, but it's for reduced downtime upgrade. We sped up the vCenter upgrade itself, but enhancements were added to it on top of that, so that again, what I described as the fast suspend resume order has changed. Some additional changes were made for profiles, so which has led us to reduce this downtime for vCenter from like in the tens of minutes to less than 5 minutes. So the vCenter upgrade process itself has also been sped up. Again, we want to make sure that we are making those enhancements for lifecycle management and make them faster and faster. There is some, and of course, like the rest of our capabilities, we have ability to roll back as well if you have made any mistake. Things that don't just go to the top 10, but we have still been focusing on the LCM side, from the lifecycle management side. It's mixed vendor clusters. It's not a, splashy feature, but it is important. Again, this is again with the theme of trying to maximize and make the most out of your existing infrastructure. And I'm referring here to mixed vendor clusters, meaning typically you'll have a Lenovo cluster in the Dell VXRL cluster, HP cluster. And if you have workloads which are targeted to those, and if you want to increase the scale there, then you need to buy more Lenovo or buy more HP. I am assuming you identify with this, that's the smile, but that typically happens. And we would not let you do that in the past, right? Because we always say so the same configuration profile make your all of those are in the same image. So I think with mixed vendor clusters, this does extend it, right? Because if you want to scale up and you don't have capacity, you can't use the other. We are giving essentially the ability to use that cluster and be able to manage your workload. So mixed vendor clusters is trying to again help you get to more utilization of your existing hardware. Global images, this is something that's for, again, we went from host profiles to configuration profiles, desired state VM images. This is talking a little bit more about how that is made available at a fleet level. So when VCF and VCF or VVF consume this and apply that from a configuration perspective, they can use this. So you're configuring at your cluster level, but being able to apply that across by sharing that across the fleet. Config profile updates, I'm just referring to it here, probably a little more technical discussion in the TMM session. Being able to use NSX profiles and everything that goes along with config profiles, from updates as well as policy management. Some additional changes on the recommendation is engine. So when you are trying to do an upgrade, being able to tell which version you should be at. So we continue to make those changes for it. Monster scale, I know this is a little bit, I like that term because I really like that monster VM ability when we talk about huge VMs. And this is really, before I talk about that, some things that happen async to our major releases is the hardware revisions, right? We are at vSphere 9.2, but our hardware revision is at 22. So some of the changes I'm going to talk about are virtual hardware version 22 related. And basically with each of these hardware revisions, we add support for new processors, in this case for Intel, Sapphire Rapids, and AMD Turin and Venice processors. But with that, what you basically get is the support for up to 960 cores per socket. So that ability is on top of the hardware revision 22. And what that allows us to do is then support really high workloads, right? Such as SAP HANA, which need those number of cores and sockets from a workload perspective. So that's what we are referring to as monster scale. And on that hardware, on those processors, you can get up to, I think, for the rest of our VMs, it's 24 TB, but up to 16 TB per VM. So devil is in the details, but that's for large workloads for SAP HANA. But other thing it also does is, if you're on that, again, version, you can do consolidation of your workloads onto hosts. So reducing the footprint of your hosts for better power efficiency, better efficiency, utilization of those resources. Some other things from, again, the hardware revision 22 is, and this may be important to us, some of you TPM spec updates, ability to do scaling for control plane VMs. There are other things that are there that are important to you. But one I will call out is support for Intel TDX and AMD SAE from an encryption perspective. So we have always led in that sense for encryption, for data at rest, for data in transit, but for data in use for applications which otherwise are susceptible to vulnerabilities. That's basically a confidential computing 1.0 type of support that's in this hardware revision. It's in infancy, so I'll not speak a whole lot more about it. And I'm looking at Yumi for approval, but that's in virtual the hardware revision 22 as well. And that monster scale, that number is today's highest scale in the market. So I'm really happy about that. All right, making sure I'm good on time. Okay. The next three, so when Yumi showed that slide, our first pillar was modernize compute, which is all of this stuff. Lifecycle management, hardware revisions, and all of those. But our second pillar was on being able to power modern workloads. And that's really talking about how we can support legacy workloads, VM-based workloads, as well as new workloads, which are AI workloads, container microservices architecture-based workloads. So this next three set of features are kind of related to that. And I know I'm calling this supervisor, but you guys might have heard it throughout the all of the sessions today as the VKS platform, vSphere Kubernetes service, and the Kubernetes platform. At the vSphere level, for this audience, reality is that happens through the supervisor. Supervisor is an instance that needs to be updated so that you can get access to all of the bunch of those services. What are those services? VM services, storage services, network services, and all of the Kubernetes services. But that starts with supervisor. And with the supervisor, when you're updating it, the supervisor configuration is a bottleneck as well, because for somebody to get started on that journey, they still need to figure out, okay, what am I going to start with? I need to figure out what I'm going to add. Am I going to add a load balancer in the future? Do I have control plane VMs that I'm going to be addressing? Am I adding workload zones? Am I adding network? They don't have it all figured out in the very beginning. So it actually used to become a hurdle that how do I get started? I don't have all the things figured out. So with this feature, basically you can get started faster. As new cloud services become available, or as you start getting ready for that, you can add that onto the configuration. So you don't have to have your entire supervisor configuration figured out at the very beginning. The second feature along those lines is being able to update your supervisor independent of vSphere. So supervisor used to be an integral part of vSphere. You have to wait for the next vSphere release to update the supervisor and upgrade all of the services. So we started with trying to do that for the services first. Now the supervisor itself is also independently upgradable. And you may refer to this a little bit, right? For somebody who is, for an organization which wants to deploy container-based workloads, Kubernetes clusters-based workloads, they want to get to the latest Kubernetes release faster. Get what your updates are there so that your platform engineering teams, your developer teams can get those services faster, build on top of that container architecture for Kubernetes and go from there. So this particular feature is allowing you to be able to do that for the supervisor. You can upgrade the supervisor independently, don't have to wait for it. Right now we're at N-2, so 2 months or 3 months, well, 2 months behind the latest Kubernetes release. It's important for our workload story. It's important for our target audience there, which is the platform engineering teams, DevOps teams, developers, to be able to get that access. So this is a feature inside the vSphere supervisor, which gets you one step closer to that latest release. Number 9 is also related to supervisor. So I was referring to the consistent operation. It's, we have traditionally, from a virtualization perspective, traditional VM-based workloads is where we have shined. We are trying to do the same thing for Kubernetes and Kubernetes clusters, not just from a performance, like management perspective, but also from a performance perspective. What we are trying to do with, if you see all our theme, like whether we are making changes to the UI, bringing in NSX, all of that, we are trying to get that operation consistent between multiple layers. This particular one is trying to get consistent operation across how we manage and look at VMs and do the performance, whether it's performance monitoring, enhancement, all of those. This is about being able to do consistent operations for VMs and containers. So the changes that have gone in, right? Even VMs which were configured in 2015 before VM service class was introduced in 8.0 timeframe were different. But by doing that and being able to add the services so that they're similar, so whatever we are doing for Kubernetes and adding the capabilities for it, for deploying, resizing, rebalancing, the backup and recovery workflows. All of that is now also available for VM service-based VMs. So if you're not using VM service VMs, do use them, because that again gets you one step closer to consistent operations across those two. And this is kind of part of that middle pillar, being able to power the modern workload story. Automation is, again, it's not a super sexy feature, so to say, but it's important, right? Because you can access our configuration through APIs, CLI, UI, and we talked a little bit about the UI features, but the automation for the ground up via admin is also important. Getting those REST APIs, being able to have some sample code and build your automation on top of that. So that's at the API level, and being able to do that which is conformant for the Open API 3.0 standard. And that SDK is actually more about a VCF story, being able to use those SDKs so that you can do automation for the components. Components being vSphere, vSAN, NSX, operations, and so on. So I know this may resonate with some of you, maybe not with all of you, but it's an important story. We want to make sure that our automation infrastructure stays in place, and then there are things that are built on top which you can access from VCF. And some more. I ran out. It was more than 10. So, but this is part of our security story, right? We did a webinar recently with one of the analysts, and one of the things that the analyst said was very important. Security, and it's part of our security, is not an afterthought. There are lots of industry best practices when it comes to security. Not everybody is up to speed at all the times. If we can take the guesswork out of that for the VI admin, so that's also always built in, less error prone, less susceptible to vulnerabilities. That's what we have been doing. So if you see the addition of features that we have added, so TLS support, it was there. We had 1.3 support, but now it's out of the box. FIPS, 140.2 compliance, yes, it's important. Remediation-wise, drift-wise, you're being consistent with your regulations. All of that is there. And this is my third bullet on the 11th slide. But when I showed this at one of the webinars, they say, this is important to me. Have you guys had certificate renewal issues? I know, people who smirk know what I'm talking about. This is not something that will go as my first thing, but it's important to those guys who say, oh, certificates expired. I didn't even know what happened. Features just stopped working, and we have to spend time debugging it. So this particular feature is enabled inside vSphere. You will see a lot more of this in the VCF operations dashboard, okay? So, which is exposed in VVF as well as VCF. There's a certificate management dashboard. You can monitor the status. You can do a whole bunch of things to make sure it doesn't expire, and some things just don't stop working. But I was, there's the marketing messaging which I want to give, and there is some things that matter to the admin. So I found it interesting that it was one of them. Okay, so with that, I think I am at time. Just to give a very high-level summary, right? All of the features that are talked about in this context, right? From a modernization perspective, memory tiering, LCM, live patching, all of those are there. From security, all the things that I just spoke about, from compliance and that. From workloads, our story on Kubernetes containers, being able to manage them, do all of the upgrades. This is where we have been trying to focus and make sure that we can still adhere to our core audience for whom it's important. At the same time, the path to it is going to be through VVF or VCF. Hopefully, from last year's feedback to me was, hey, I came here for a technical session and I didn't get it. I wanted to just set up the stage so that at least you know what's in it. There's a ton of features in vSphere 9. Some of the technical details, you can come to the booth. You can come to Bob in Dave's session tomorrow. It's at 1 p.m., I believe, where we will talk a little more about that and you can ask the questions there as well. But I want to thank you all for coming, being loyal vSphere customers. And if you have questions, please direct them to me and Yumi. Anybody have any major questions that you would like to bring up in the open forum? I know you have a question. Yes. It is one of the things that's not possible today yet. HATPM is one of the things we want to address. That's the last 20% that we need to get. Thank you again.